In this video, I take an old and outdated dresser set and transform it into something special. The only catch is I only have a few days to get this project completed. Will this project lead to a headache, or will I get it done in the nick of time before the deadline? Stay tuned to find out. Everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren. I am the Furniture Flipping Teacher. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, be sure and get subscribed down below. We are here every single Thursday with a new furniture flipping video, and I like to take you guys from start to finish on all of my furniture flipping projects. If you're interested in any further education opportunities, check the links down below in the description, and I'll also have all of my products listed down there as well. We're gonna go ahead and hop into this flip because it is gonna be a really fun one. Thanks so much to Dixie Belle for sponsoring today's video. So I got this set off of Facebook Marketplace, actually probably a couple years ago for $100. So it was definitely a score when I came across this. I only had to travel about 30 minutes for it, so really not too bad. It also came with a headboard and a mirror, but typically I go ahead and donate those or get rid of them in another way because really these are the bread and butter, the dressers, the nightstands. They've been packed away in the storage unit, but they have been claimed for a custom project. So I'm super excited to give these a new life. They've got a really unique design. Our first step is gonna be cleaning. So for cleaning, I am gonna be utilizing Dixie Belle's White Lightning Cleaner, which comes in this granule substance, and then I like to put it inside of a spray bottle so that it gets more use over time. Instead of just dumping this into a bucket and getting rid of that bucket, I've got this spray bottle for a lot of projects to come. It'll last me a lot of projects. I'm also gonna go ahead and whip out my little gloves here for cleaning, and then I'll be using some lint-free cloths to just wipe these down. So you might be asking yourself, why clean before you sand or paint? Well, the answer is because cleaning is going to help get all that dust and dirt and grime off of the surface, thus allowing your paint to adhere much better. Now, if you're wondering why I clean before I sand, it's really because I don't want to be grinding any of that dirt and oil down into the surface and making it less likely to adhere in the end. So I just like to start with a clean, fresh slate, and White Lightning really helps me do that. And also, not only is it important to clean the outside, but also clean the inside. So I like to go ahead and take all of the drawers out and label them with my permanent marker. That way I know exactly where these drawers are going back when I am ready to reassemble everything. While you're cleaning, it's also a really great time to just check for any imperfections in your drawer slides, but then also all around your piece on the surface so that you can go ahead and note those so when you're ready for repairs, you know exactly what you need to repair. Well, this was unexpected. I did not know that there was a broken drawer slide, but we have it. So that is a miracle because we can just glue that baby right back on there and act like that never happened. Whew. All right, real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and fix this drawer slide. And since it's all still intact, all I need to really do is get some wood glue, tight bond wood glue, and layer it up. I always like to have some clamps handy so that we can clamp these together. That'll dry, and then we'll be able to use the drawer as normal. All right, it's time for some repairs. Sometimes I like to do my repairs after I sand, but sometimes if I know that there's like some major repairs, I'll do it before I sand. That way I can just kind of sand all at once. But we're gonna be using some Bondo, and Dixie Belle does have a wood filler. However, it's more for like those superficial scratches or dents and dings. It's not really for like as big of damage that I have to repair. On the side here, I've got some veneer that's peeling up, and it's just gonna be easier to peel it back and fill it in with some Bondo. So we've got all-purpose putty here. It comes in the 2-part epoxy, one in the can and one in the tube here. So you just scoop out however much you think you're gonna need, and it does dry and harden pretty quickly. So make sure that you are using only little bits at a time so it doesn't harden too fast, and then it'll be sandable within about 15 minutes. So after I've got my gray here, then I'm gonna go ahead and do my blue. Some of them are, tan and red. Some of them are just different colors, but really it's all the same thing. I'm running out of this one. I got a backup can over there, but we're gonna use this as much as we possibly can till the end of the can is out. So we'll stir that together, making sure it's all one good consistency of color. So it's like a lighter blue color, and then I'll rub it on or apply it onto the areas that need filling in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this veneer here as much as I need to, and it's all gonna come off cool. So since this all came off, I'm just gonna go ahead and apply the Bondo to the whole face front here, because I don't want that exposed plywood with the wood glue, but we'll still sand the Bondo smooth, but we just want it to be a smooth surface. All right, it is time to sand, and I've got my Surf Prep sander here connected to my dust extractor, and I've got a 120 grit on my sander. And this is the 3x4 electric ray sander, and it is very powerful and very good for furniture refinishing. But I am gonna go ahead and sand down the Bondo and then also scuff sand the surface. A 120 grit will be great for both of those things. And the reason I'm scuff sanding is so that the primer can really adhere. This is pretty smooth, and so I want to roughen up the surface just a little bit. And then I'm also going to kind of sand out some of the really shallow scratches up on the top, so that we've got a nice even surface to prime. So in order to get into these curve areas, I am using the Surf Prep foam abrasive pads, and so it's going to really help me contour into here and not have to sacrifice the edging or any of the curves and flatten it out at all. It's just gonna go ahead and like mold to it so that, again, it doesn't get ruined. This is gonna save me a lot of time because I don't have to go and hand sand all of these areas, but this is just gonna fit right in. So I'm gonna finish the drawer fronts, and then we'll be able to wipe back all of the sanding dust. All right, we are getting close to being able to start on the primer. There's just one more thing that I want to do, and my client actually really likes the floating look of the mid-century style dresser, but to her and to us, it felt just a little bit too close to the ground. This is only 30 inches off the ground, and she wanted to kind of elevate it a little bit. And so I am gonna be adding some 5.5 inch trim. So it's gonna just up it. I think it's gonna be about two and a half more inches than it currently sits. So it'll end up being right around like 33, which we felt like was a better height for a dresser. So I'm gonna cut the red oak to size, and then for the nightstands, they do sit a little bit lower. We're gonna add 3.5 inches onto the bottom instead of the 2.5 that it currently sits at. So it'll get some elevation as well. But I'm gonna miter the corners so that it fits really nicely together, and then we'll attach them before we prime. That's kind of why I didn't really do anything with the bottom portion here, because I'm gonna go ahead and put this over it. Okay, I had to take a quick pause and like gather my thoughts, figure out how I was gonna do it. I was originally just hoping that I could put another like thicker board to make it taller right over the top of the current existing floating base, but it looked really funny because instead of being more inset, it was like way out here. It just really didn't look good, and I was hoping not to have to rebuild the bases completely, but that's what I had to do, and that's okay. I want to make it so that my client loves it and enjoys it. So our goal is to make the nightstands 24 inches tall. And so what I did is I took the 5.5 inch red oak, cut it down to 4.5 inches with my Craig rip cut. And then I just took the old base off, put the new base on, cut it, blah, blah, blah. Well, I did that off camera because I wanted to make sure that I could figure it out. And so now I'm gonna show you what I did on this nightstand with this nightstand. I do think that it looks good. It looks a lot better than it would have looked if I would have just done it like the easy way out. And again, I want my client to have a great end result. And if I didn't like it, I don't think she would like it. So I've already got my 3 pieces to create the base cut, and I did miter the edges here like so. Are they gonna catch it? Yeah. I mitered the edges like this so that they can fit together like this, which looks really nice when it's finished. So what I'm gonna do first is take this bottom piece off and then do a little bit of construction down here just to make sure that everything is really held in nicely and it's not gonna like fall off later on. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this. And luckily it's not glued in or anything, so we just need to do these screws. It wasn't glued, but it was stapled, and the other one was all only screws, so weird. Okay, next I am going to just put some little reinforcement pieces under here because this base, the old one, has like these cutouts where the front is lower than the back, and I just didn't want to do that because that's just a little bit more intricate than I am trying to get. So what I did instead was I'll just cut some 1x2s, and I'm gonna put them there for the support so that way my base can be the same all the way around. And I'm just gonna reinforce with some wood glue, like so. And then just one more reinforcement of some screws. I am currently using every tool in the book for this, so if you want to start upping your furniture game, building bases, things like that, it's time to get familiar with the tools around you. I know drills, hammers, screwdrivers, things like that. The basics are great to at least have the knowledge of those, but if you're interested in getting into the base building and upping your furniture game, things like miter saws, nail guns, pocket holes, things like that, those are going to be the tools that really help you up your game. Okay, so now that those reinforcements are on there, that gives me something to screw my base into. Now I'm gonna connect the base to each other and attach it to the bottom here. One great thing to have for this is a corner clamp so that you can clamp the corners perfectly together and make sure that they're 90 degrees. Just slide them in. I got this when my dad and I built the shelf, and I'm really glad I got it. Now we are gonna go ahead and make some pocket holes so that we can actually attach it to the bottom of the nightstand. Now that we've got our pocket holes drilled, we can just go ahead and attach this right onto the bottom. And voila. Base is built. It's 24 inches now. Boom. Now that the bases are done, we are ready to prep for primer. So I am going to be spraying because it's a bigger set and there's so many intricate details in the drawers that I just figured it would be quicker to spray. So I am gonna tape off the drawers And what I like to do is first go in with some green painter's tape and tape off the edges up until the area that I want painted versus the area that I don't want painted. And then you decide if you are going to spray the drawers separately or keep them in the actual dresser. And I think I was gonna do it separately, but I think I'm actually going to do it when they are inside of the dresser, because then I don't have to tape off the outsides and it's inset, so it's not like it's covering anything that needs to be painted. So with that being said, I think for the blue tape, I am just going to, this has the plastic attached. So I think what I'm just gonna do is make sure that the top portion here is masked off. That way no paint gets inside of the actual drawer itself. Then we'll do this to all of the drawers so that we can prime. All right, we are ready to spray. So I am going to use the spray tent so that I can really mitigate any of that overspray that's gonna happen with the sprayer. I am gonna be using my HomeRite Super Finish Max sprayer. I'm gonna strain it in there, and then I'm gonna be using Dixie Belle's Boss for the primer here. It's always a good idea to use primer if you're not sure, but the Boss is actually a stain blocker, and so it's going to help me just make sure that no stains are gonna come through since I'm going for a lighter color. And it'll also give me a look of just like complete unification from the areas that I did Bondo and then the areas that were sanded. It'll just give us a nice first coat. So I'm gonna go ahead and strain the paint into the HomeRite sprayer. Let's spray. Of course, it's important to always wear a mask. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy on. And then I'm going to test out my spray pattern here before I actually spray it onto the nightstand. So I'm gonna test and see if my settings are right. It's coming out an awful lot, so I'm just gonna turn it down a little. All right, let's spray. Okay, so like I said, I am gonna put the drawers in this, but first I want to do it without the drawers in so that I can get these guys. You can't really see them, but just in case, I want to go ahead and spray them too. I might actually just paint them later because I don't want to get spray all up in the dresser. All right, I'm just gonna put the drawers in and then we'll spray it. And I'll just paint those later. All right, we got the first coat of primer on, and then a lot of the times, if you are going from a dark color to a white, the white will really make some, I guess you could say like imperfections show through, or things that you might not have noticed since it was so dark and it was wood. And the imperfections that I'm noticing is where the mitered corners are at every single drawer. And it's kind of bothering me because it sticks out a little bit too much. And so I'm taking some Dixie mud in the color black. Ideally, I would like to use white, but I don't have any white on hand right now. So I'm using black. And then once this dries, we'll do just some touch-up primer in those areas, and it will look as if it's completely seamless and there won't be any of those like gaps. And so that's what I'm gonna be doing. This is probably gonna look a little bit like a Dalmatian when I get all of this wood filler on, but it's important to pay attention to those little details, especially on colors like white, because I feel like you can just see every little thing that could be considered like a flaw. So I'm gonna take the extra time and do this. That way we can have a flawless finish. Okie dokie. Everything is nice and smooth now, and I did just apply a quick coat of primer, just a light coat over where I sanded, and now we're ready to paint. So I am gonna be using Dixie Belle's Cotton. So it's really not gonna be too much of a difference in color because the Boss is white, the paint is white, but this is really gonna help finish things off. So I'm gonna load up my sprayer and then we're gonna get to painting coat number 1. Okay, so don't freak out. I am gonna be switching sprayers, and there's really the only reason I'm switching sprayers between, or like in the middle of a project, is because I forgot my HomeRite little wrench at home that takes the whole thing apart, and so I can't really clean out my sprayer the right way. So I'm gonna take that home and clean it, but I didn't wanna go get the wrench right now, and I've got my other sprayer, so we're gonna grab out my Wagner Flexio 5000 and get to spraying. It really doesn't matter what, sprayer you're using, so that's why I'm just gonna go ahead and switch it up. So I'm gonna strain my paint just like I did with the primer. And this is going to just make sure that none of these chunks that are in here end up in the sprayer and then clog up the spray gun. And then I'm also gonna be using this Floetrol, and the Floetrol, what it does is it kind of thins out the paint just a little bit, but it also helps it stay a little bit wetter, a little bit longer. And with the chalk paint, one that's like less likely to even out 100%, it's not a self-leveling paint, but adding the Floetrol to it does allow it to become a little bit more self-leveling, so we'll really get that flawless, smooth finish, because it's gonna kind of stay wet longer. So once this strains in there, we'll dump some Floetrol in there as well and mix it all up, make sure it's one consistency, and then we'll be good to go. I'm in a mess. Ay, ay, ay. What am I gonna do with myself? Also, I did want to say, even though the Floetrol is white, it doesn't affect your paint color at all. So obviously I'm using white, it wouldn't affect it anyway. But like if you're using a darker color or even a lighter color, any color, the Floetrol will not lighten up your paint whatsoever. So it's okay to use with any color. All right, ready for coat 1 on the big dresser. The nightstands are done. Coat 1, check. Now, we've got to let it dry, and then we will come back for coat number 2. And sometimes I like to put a fan on it to kind of speed up that drying process, but in this case, I'm just gonna let it do its thing, and then we'll see how long it takes to dry. Typically, it's about an hour or 2, so we'll come back and then do coat number 2. Okay, we're ready for coat 2. Got my sprayer refilled a little bit. I'm gonna plug everything in. Coat 2 is done, and I'm gonna let it dry. I think there's a few places where I might need to do like a third little touch-up coat, but definitely not on all surfaces. And once everything's dry, I'll do that, and then we'll come back for a top coat because we're using the chalk paint, and the chalk paint does not have the built-in top coat, so definitely need to put a top coat on it. And then we're going for some coastal cowgirl vibes because this is actually going to San Antonio for a girl who is playing sports down there at the college, and so she wanted it to be like a coastal cowboy look. So it's gonna be really modern and sleek with the white, but we are gonna jazz it up. It's not just gonna be all white because right now it kind of looks a little bit plain, but bear with me. We're here, we're doing it, and I'm sorry that this is white. I know I went white primer, white paint, and when we're doing top coat, you're not gonna be able to really tell what I'm doing or like a difference in the pieces, but bear with me, it is gonna be a great flip in the end. All right, it's time for some top coat. I'm gonna be using Dixie Belle's Satin Clear Coat to give this set a nice layer of protection. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour this in my strainer. Even top coat gets strained through because you never know. Actually, yesterday I found out that there was a clog in my sprayer, and that's why I wasn't getting like a super great spray pattern. All right, that's the first coat of top coat. I'll do a second one because I like to do just extra protection, especially on tops of the dressers. And then since these don't have hardware and they are like handles that are gonna be on the paint, I wanna actually do a second one on the entire thing because that way it just holds up longer and we're not gonna get any damage on the areas where the handles are. It is time for some of the last steps on this set. So since this doesn't have hardware and there's really not a great place to put any hardware, we decided that it still needed a little something extra. And so since we're kind of going for that coastal cowgirl look, we are going to be putting some gold gilding wax on the edges of this rectangular space here on all of the drawers. So it's just gonna give it a little pizzazz, a little character, and not make it all be white. So I've got my glove on so that I don't get this on my fingers. It is an oil-based wax. It's okay to put it over the top of water-based things, and you won't need a top coat on the top of it because once it cures, which is in about 4 to 12 hours, it'll be on there for good. It won't rub off. It won't get on your clothes. It won't get on your fingers. You can use this stuff on hardware and it's perfectly okay, no top coat. And so I'm just gonna take some on my finger here and then we're gonna rub it on. It's a little nerve-wracking here. I'm just gonna rub it onto the edges like so. And then it's gonna add a little bit to the front of this piece. I think I'm gonna kind of leave it like where you can see a little bit of that white paint through. I'm not gonna go like full coverage, but I'm gonna do like most coverage. Yeah, that, I wasn't sure because I'm not like a huge like gold person, but this does it. This levels it up just a tad bit. This, you know, just gives it a little bit of that dimension that was definitely needed, or else just white, everything is just so stark and plain. So I think this is gonna be absolutely perfect. So if you need me, I'll be here for a while, getting my gold gilding wax on. It's time for the final reveal. Ta-da! We are done. I will say that this set is a labor of love and it took a lot longer than I kind of anticipated, but that's okay. I tend to do that a lot. So I tracked the hours and I think I spent about 12 hours on this set when originally I was kind of thinking about 8 hours. Now this was a commission set and the person who is purchasing it actually needed it within about a 10-day span. So it was kind of a rush, which means that I added on a rush fee. So we're gonna talk about the numbers and how I got the numbers. Originally, we had this set here in our store with a sign on it that says customize me for $8.99. So $900 customized, but that only included, you know, painting it and kind of having it as is with no additions like hardware or a base, things like that. So that was $900, and then I charged $200 for the base, and really that only covered material costs. And so I was really glad that I went ahead and did that because the wood that I chose, it needed to be really strong, and so I went with the red oak, and I'm glad I did because it's really strong, but it was a little bit more costly. So that covered the base, and then I did a $300 rush fee. It was Christmas time, the new year. You know, we weren't really gonna be planning on working as much during that time, but She was totally fine and on board with paying the rush fee. So the total was $1,400 for this entire set. But let's talk about the breakdown of the cost to see our final profit. So the set costs $100 up front. The wood costs $120 for the bases. The primer costs $40. The paint costs $35. The top coat costs $30. And then the miscellaneous items, things like tape, screws, sandpaper, Bondo, gilding, wax, it's almost negligible, like the amount that I use on each flip, but it does add up, and so I want to give a nod to that. So we're going to call it $25 total for those miscellaneous costs. So we're at a total cost of $350, and when you take the $350 away from the $1,400, that equals out to being $1,050 profit. So not too shabby for our first set of the year. That profit is really great. And speaking of profits, the root of our channel stemmed from me saving up to pay off my student loan debt, and we are ready to get back to our roots and tracking our profits with you guys over the next year. So in 2024, every single project that I do is going to be tracked. We're going to have a profit tracker. So this is a great start to our profit for 2024. I just want to be able to show you guys what furniture flipping has done for us, but then also what it can do for you. Whether you're saving up for something that's gonna be really fun, like a wedding or a vacation, and you don't wanna use your day-to-day salary, or if you are trying to pay down some debt, maybe it's student loan debt, maybe it's credit card debt, maybe you are just trying to get that house mortgage paid down so that you don't have to continue to pay the interest that we all hate so much. If you're looking to get serious about flipping furniture, check out the links down below. We've got some amazing opportunities for you guys, and we also have a really tight-knit community of people who are encouraging and sharing their experiences, sharing tips and tricks. We'd love to have you a part of that community as well. Thanks again so much to Dixie Belle for sponsoring today's video. We're so excited to be partnering with them again this year. They've got some awesome products. Check out the links down below in the description. And last but not least, we want to know your 2024 goals, whether it's personal, business, has to do with flipping furniture. Drop them down below in the comments. We hope you guys are having a great new year, and I'll see you on the flip side.